acquirer obtains a control of business, such business combinations are accounted for using the acquisition model that is provided under IFRS 3, and it generally requires that assets should be that are acquired and the liabilities that are assumed needs to be measured at the fair value at the acquisition date. The recognition and measurement of the assets acquired and the liabilities so assumed should be same regardless of whether the acquirer obtains 100% or lesser controlling interest in a business. So IFRS 3 does not differentiate between the amount that you're acquiring in a company, be it 100%, be it 80%, be it 70%. It doesn't differentiate. The accounting model is same. So IFRS revised version was issued in 2008 and it is applicable to all the entities on or after 1st of July 2009. And it can be applied retrospectively. And there is one more thing in retrospective application. There is one thing that if an entity wants to retrospectively apply, they have just now converged from GAAP or any local standards that they were following, and they've just converged into IFRS statements. So if even they want to retrospectively apply it, you cannot retrospectively apply it for before 2007. Any combination that has happened before 2007, application of IFRS 3 is not applicable to them. So any combination in a retrospective way, if you need to apply, if you're wanting to apply, because of course we have seen in IFRS 1 that it is not a mandatory exception, it is an optional exception. So if you want to retrospectively apply on that, you can definitely do it, but not any combination done before 2007. So before we start the whole sessions, there are certain things that we need to have clarity upon on what is what. So we'll be going through the definitions that are actually provided also, and that we'll be coming across again and again while we are going through this IFRS 3. So there are four basic definitions that are provided because these are used again and again over the whole IFRS. First is this business combination. Business combination as defined under the IFRS 3 sections are that transaction or any other event in which an acquirer controls or obtains a control of one or more business. So in simple words, I'll help you. Business combination occurs when any entity purchases equity interests in some other entity, or it even purchases net assets of some other entity. Then second is the acquisition date. Acquisition date is of utmost importance in this IFRS 3. The reason is because any accounting that is going to happen will happen on or after the acquisition date. So we'll have to differentiate between pre-acquisition and post-acquisition. Hence, that is the reason you have to get clarity on what is the acquisition date actually. At what point of time in the year acquirer got control or obtained control over the acquiree. And then comes is acquirer. Acquirer is of course the entity that obtains the control, is the acquirer. From here we'll be saying it as a legal entity, the owner, and of course we can say as the controller. These are the various words that are used for the acquirer. And acquiree is of course the business or the entity on which the acquirer obtained control is the acquiree. These are very simple, but the reason is it is very utmost important because on these terms you will be doing your accounting, or you will be just bifurcating the pre-acquisition, post-acquisition amounts of your assets, liability, whatever it is. Now we'll be talking of the scope. Look, there are various scopes here under various articles as you go through. There are the scopes are divided. Some of the articles take up as the scope which do not fall under this. Some take it as what falls under IFRS 3. So there are two ways of presenting it. So instead of having it making it quite big, the circle, instead of making the circle quite big of what doesn't falls, so of course it makes the scope circle quite big. So we'll be taking up here at what falls under the scope. What are the important things that needs to be accounted for in IFRS 3? It makes it more easier for us to bifurcate as this is what is IFRS 3, this is what is not IFRS 3. So the first is where this IFRS 3 business combinations apply is roll up or put up together transactions. Now, there are certain transactions that happen where all the combining entities transfer their net assets to those entities and transfer their equity interest to a newly formed entities. Often the entities are in the same or similar lines of business. Such transactions are known as roll up or put together transactions. So there is one important thing that needs to be kept in mind is they must be in the same line of business. Let's say automobile industry, there are three companies that are working differently in automobile industry, and they've just combined all their transactions, they've combined the entity and formed a new entity. So this is a roll up transaction. But one thing is they were all working in the same line of business. I cannot have a automobile industry or some other industry or a technical industry. I cannot just merge them and say it is a roll up transaction. It has to be under the same line of business. Though there are various ways under roll-up transaction, there can be some certain bifurcations, there can be certain disagreements on this, but regardless of this, IFRS indicates that any roll-up transaction that is happening needs to be accounted for as per the acquisition model that we'll be seeing, of course, in the further slides, as per the acquisition model that is provided under IFRS 3. The second one is combination of mutual entities. Any entity that is other than an investor owned entity. Investor owned entity is a subsidiary, for your information in simpler words, that provides dividends, lower costs, or other economic benefits directly or proportionately to its users, members, stakeholders, participants. Like you must have heard about credit unions and cooperatives are examples of such mutual entities. So these are also under the scope of IFRS. But there is one thing again here, that when you are mutually combining an entity or a cooperative is mutually combining, so since it is a mutual cooperation, there is no one big or small, as in there is no control over the other. So out of them, all of them have to just specify who is the acquirer and who all are the acquirees. This is a mutual consent between whoever parties are to the contract or the agreement. Then is true mergers, or we can also say it as mergers of equals. And it is sometimes used to describe a transaction in which two entities who approximately are of equal size combine and form a new company. So here, the size of the entities needs to be focused on. Like in roll-up transactions, there was same line of business, irrespective of the size. Here, it is almost the same size of business. In the sense of size of business, I'll be saying you can take as the net assets, the financial position, the market standings, etc. You can just go through these and can judge as in they are equal entities or not. Then let's come down to partial acquisition. Partial acquisition is the basic acquisitions that all of us know, in which any one entity acquires control over the other with not with more than 50 but less than 100% of the voting rights. This is the basic combination, business combination that all of us know, where my control over the second entity or the acquiry is more than 50% or 51%, to be very precise, but less than 100%. To most of the financial background people, if they know, this is the normal business combination where I have a controlling entity and non-controlling interests. That is the minority interest people that I have, shares and equity instruments. Then coming down to step acquisition. This is another kind of an acquisition that is in the scope of IFRS 3. Under this, the acquirer sometimes obtain control of the acquiry in which it held an equity immediately before the acquisition date. Like for example, on 31st of December 2009, my entity holds 35% non-controlling equity interest on entity A. On that day, I've purchased more in such a way that now I become the controlling entity of that entity. Acha, in partial acquisitions and step acquisitions, partial acquisition can happen at any point of the year. I may not have any transaction with entity A, but I can go and purchase the equity rights of that equity controlling voting rights of entity A, and I can become the controller or the acquirer of that entity. But in step acquisition, I was already in a transaction in a way where I held certain rights, voting rights of the entity, but they were not substantive enough for me to control that. So this is a difference between partial acquisition and step acquisition. In order to differentiate, partial acquisition can happen anytime. I do not need to have any trade, any kind of merger acquisition, nothing to the entity or the acquiry. But in step acquisition, I must be having certain investment in the acquiry in terms of my voting rights investment. Now, after that, there is one more type of combination, which is maybe totally different to most of the people. So this is actually business combination that is achieved without the transfer of consideration. In all the above, there is a transfer of consideration that may happen because that is how the basic things happen. When I am acquiring a entity, I am of course going to provide you with consideration. Under this business combination, there is no consideration that is transferred. What happens under this is that the acquirer sometimes obtain control over the acquiry without transferring the consideration. Acquisition method of accounting for a business combination applies to those combinations. Such circumstances may be like the acquiry repurchases a sufficient number of its own shares for an existing investor to obtain control. Now, let's say in my prior example, I was having 75% of controlling rights, that is shares in entity A. Now, entity A purchases its shares back from me to obtain its control again over its entity. So now they will be, they've just repurchased their own controlling interest shares. They haven't paid any consideration on that. So this is kind of a business combination that is can be acquired without any consideration being transferred. And second scenario is where the minority veto rights, of course, veto rights lapse that previously kept the acquirer from controlling an acquiry in which the acquirer held the majority voting rights. It may happen that the 25% of my minorities interest lapse due to any reason. So of course, now I become the 100% controller. I do not have to provide any consideration for that. Let's say in an example, there is entity A and entity B. Entity A had 45% of shares. So of course, it is not a controlling entity. But the rest, out of rest, 55%, there are certain shares that got lapsed. Let's say 25% of shares got lapsed. So now it is 45 plus 20 that came down to me. I'm not paying any business consideration. The minorities shares got lapsed and I am the now controlling entity. The acquirer, and this third scenario is when the acquirer and the acquiree agree to combine their business by contract alone. The acquirer transfers no consideration in exchange of control of an acquiree and holds no equity interest in the acquiree, either on the acquisition date or previously. This is a very normal thing where two entities, where one is powerful, the other is not, they just combine both the entities by a way of contract without having any business combination under that. So now we'll be coming down to the acquisition model. The acquisition model, as I told you, is basically where it requires the assets needs to be that are acquired and the liabilities that have been assumed from the acquiree has to be measured at the fair value. But of course, there are certain steps that needs to be followed in the acquisition model. Basically, there are 4 steps, but I've just divided it into 7 steps for easy understanding. So the first one is to identify the business combination. What kind of business combination am I being considering? What is the business combination that I've entered in? In the traditional acquisitions, like purchase of a controlling interest in an unrelated operating entity, our business combinations within the IFRS 3, like step acquisitions are also there. We've gone through so many under the scope. So many transaction and other events involving the purchase of another entity, group assets require further analysis to determine whether what is acquired in the business, what control has been obtained, and what is the combination, what kind of combination have I entered it, whether it is step, whether it is partial, whether it is put together, roll up, what kind of combination that I've entered in. Second is, who is the acquirer? When it is a partial or a step acquisition, where it is very easy to understand that what kind of, who is the acquirer, who all are the acquirer. But when I have any mutual combination or any mergers of the equals, then, or like true mergers that we had, so it is very important to specify who is the acquirer and who is the acquiree, because in that terms the accounting will be done. If the because under the books of the acquirer, all the accounting things will be given phase 2. Then is determining the acquisition date. The acquisition date is the date when the acquirer obtains the control of the on the acquiree. Usually specified closing or the completion date of the combination date, you can take it as the acquisition date, the closing date, or where all the formalities of your acquisition had been given form to and all the formalities are done with and the completion is done. Now, this is a very important step, is to recognize and measure. This is actually a very complex kind of a step. It requires the acquirer to recognize the identifiable assets that are acquired and liabilities that are assumed. And also some intangible assets if they are not present in the acquiree's own financial statements. Now you need to also measure the identifiable assets that are acquired and liabilities assumed at the fair value. You will also have to determine the applicability of certain recognition and measurement provisions that are given. And then you will have to designate the assets acquired and liabilities assumed. It may happen your acquirees financial statements do not classify the assets and liabilities specifically under the heads that it should go to. So you will also have to classify and designate those assets and liabilities too. Then comes is to recognize and measure the non-controlling interest. NCI is the non-controlling interest. The acquirer has the choice, of course, to measure the present ownership type non-controlling interest at either the fair value or the proportionate interest in the acquiree's recognized identifiable assets. So if I am the acquirer, I have the option that I will show the NCI under my financial statements at the fair value of whatever the shares that they are holding, the fair value of those. Or I can provide them with the acquiree's recognized identifiable net assets portion. For example, I have acquired 80% under the acquiree and 20% is the minority interest. So I can provide a new NCI amount in the way like 20% of the net identifiable assets at the fair value that I have measured. There are two ways of doing it. In fact, and those ways depends on the acquirer. And then is the consideration. Consideration is actually the cash and other assets that is transferred, liabilities incurred, and equity interests that are issued by the acquirer. Now, there is one thing under consideration in acquisition model under IFRS 3, which is very important to understand. So please just pay certain attention under the consideration thing. Here, it is not a normal consideration. Consideration under this IFRS 3 also includes contingent consideration. There is something also known as contingent consideration under this model. For those who are not aware of this contingent consideration, it is basically an obligation of the acquirer to transfer additional assets or equity interest to the acquiree's former owners if specified future events happens or certain conditions are met. Contingent consideration is that in my balance sheet, I am a single owner, a single entity. In my balance sheet, there are certain contingent liabilities appearing. There are certain contingencies that I have provided for that may happen in near future or that may happen in future. So of course, at any given point of time, I'll have to provide for that. But now my company is being acquired by a third person. So that amount will go into contingent consideration, and it totally depends on happening or non-happening of that event. And the last part of this acquisition model is goodwill. Goodwill is, of course, the gain or capital reserve that is measured at the residual amount, which is done by using our goodwill calculation formula. Of course, I'll be showing that formula for the people who do not know it. But goodwill is, of course, for the people from the functional background, is the basic goodwill that we usually calculate. Yeah, there is one more thing for the contingent consideration. This contingent consideration amount is, of course, depending on a future event, but it is valued at the fair value. Now, this whole thing of IFRS 3, it is basically dependent on two principles. One is the recognition, and the other is the measurement principle. The whole business combination IFRS 3 effects are dependent on these two principles as to recognition and measurement. Acquisition method requires the acquirer, whoever is the acquirer, to recognize and measure the assets that are acquired and liabilities that are assumed. These assets and liabilities are not, however, at the same amount that is shown in the acquiree's financial statements, which is very obvious because it may be revalued at the fair values. IFRS 3's recognition and measurement principles are actually applied instead of that, and they determine a new value to the assets and the liabilities that are recognized, and they provide you how to measure them, at what amount they should be measured. So the whole objective of providing these two principles under IFRS 3 is to give you guidance that the how to apply the specific recognition and measurement guidance for a particular asset and liability. How do I measure my asset and how do I measure my liability? So the recognition principle is actually assets acquired and liabilities that are assumed in the business combination are recognized if they meet the IFRS 3's recognition principle on the acquisition date. Assets and liabilities may not be the same as those recognized in acquiree's own financial statements. As I told you, like there are in the acquiree's financial statement, there are certain assets and there are certain liabilities that they might be available, that might be reviewed on based on their standards, local standards or something. But when a business combination takes into effect, you will have to value those assets and liabilities based on the IFRS 3 recognition principle. You cannot use the same old standard that has been going on, or rather that has been used by the acquiree. Most of the assets and liabilities that are recognized will of course fall under the IFRS categories. There are various categories under the IFRS categories, as in IFRS numbers like 1, 2, 3. There are various IFRSs that has been given and provided, and most of my assets and liabilities will fall under them, and I will have to value it as per them. Like cash and cash equivalents are there, inventories, financial assets, liabilities, trade receivable, payables, property, plant and equipment, intangible assets are there, deferred tax asset, accruals and provisions, there are so on. So all these needs to be revalued as per my IFRS categories, which have those into them. Now the acquirer will only recognize those assets and liabilities in the balance sheet or in the financial statements that were exchanged in business combination. Second is the measurement principle. Measurement principle says that when acquirer will have to measure the identifiable assets that are acquired and the liabilities that will be assumed, and any non-controlling interest in the acquiree at their acquisition date fair values. Measurement says that acquisition date fair values needs to be used for the identifiable assets and the liabilities, and also for the non-controlling interest amount calculation. So most of the assets and liabilities are items of consideration are measured at fair value in accordance with the principle. Like for example, if I have an employee benefit or a share-based payment and assets are held for sale, they all needs to be measured and valued at the applicable IFRS. Like share-based payment, it is applicable under IFRS 2. So whatever my IFRS 2 principles provide me, how do I need to measure that? I'm going to measure it as per my IFRS 2. So this is what my measurement principle says. Let's start with my recognition principle. The assets and liabilities that are recognized are unique to each business combination, and of course they differ extensively. So any same kind of view cannot be provided under the IFRS, because it depends from business to business on what are the assets and what are the liabilities that are included under business. Specific considerations are of course applicable and given under the IFRS for some types of assets and liabilities that are almost or mostly the same under various business organizations. The specific considerations are given for the reason that IFRS 3 includes certain specific guidance in some cases and exceptions to the general recognition principle. This is the reason that they've given, because they do not fall under the general recognition principle. I do not have a special IFRS or the IFRS 3, and that particular IFRS or IAS do not go hand in hand. They do not merge. That is not the way I'm going to value my assets or liabilities. IFRS 3 says that they should be measured at a level as differently. The second factor is also like these items often differ from the assets and liabilities that are recognized in the acquiree's own financial statements. As I told you, it may happen that my acquiree is following a local standard, any gap standard that they are following. Now, if I am having a business combination, it is going to take effect as per my IFRS 3. So, of course, I will have to recognize and measure those assets as per recognize those assets and liabilities as per my IFRS 3. Like most, there are various considerations and analysis requirements that are provided in the IFRS 3. I have taken 4 here that are usually the same, or they usually have the same effect under various business organizations. Like these 4 are usually there. Apart from this, there are also restructuring obligations. There are operating leases, reacquired rights, indemnified assets. There are so on like that. But of course, it depends from business to business, how do they treat it. These 4, I think, is same for all the business leads. Like when I come to intangible assets, determining the intangible assets to be recognized can be challenging and of course requires judgments. So intangible assets requires judgment in a way that my acquiree might have classified any asset as an intangible asset, but it does not comes under my intangible assets IFRS. Like IAS 38, it does not takes it as an intangible asset. Then is deferred tax. The acquirer does not recognize the acquiree's historical deferred tax balances, and hence it determines its new amounts based on the assets and liabilities that are recognized in the acquisition accounting and the requirement of IAS 12, that is the income taxes. Employee benefits. It is governed by IAS 19, and acquirer applies certain specific requirements that are provided under the IAS 19 clauses to determine the assets and liabilities that needs to be recognized for any assumed post-employment or any post-employment or post-retirement benefit plans. And then there is this contingent liabilities. Contingent liabilities and assets, if there are any in the acquiree's balance sheet, they are actually governed by IAS 37, but there are certain IFRS 3 provisions that needs to be followed when I am dealing with contingent assets and liabilities of the acquiree. I cannot account them exactly as per my IAS 37 allows me to. We're going to see it in the further slides, what are the basic differences in my actual IAS or IFRS and provided under IFRS 3. The intangible asset, instead of me taking the whole intangible thing, I have just provided you with an example that will help you in how does the intangible assets accounting or recognition is done. How does the intangible assets recognition is done? Of course, the accounting is same. If I am classifying any intangible asset into my financial position, it is gonna go as per my other calculations for my consideration, goodwill, and NCIs. So the example is that AC acquired company TC. It is a retailer company. Now this retailer company TC owns a client relationship management software that can be sold or licensed. It is different from the organization. However, company TC has no intention to do so because it will negatively impact its operation. Here, from a contractual or legal right. For those people who do not understand that arising of this contractual and the legal right, this is actually under provides that internalizing any legal right, regardless of whether those rights can be transferred, they are separable from the entity or from any other rights criteria is separated, divided from the licensed, transferred, rented, or whatever. That it can be sold and it can be licensed. It is separable. To be done on this separate, that is when we go through all these contractual and separable things, company actual does not affect this treated as intangible in the can show acquisition tangible asset, tangible assets, so we can now their value. I suppose account my business for tax. We of course these adjustments do not affect the tax base of my assets. Whatever is my tax base of the effort facilities going to affect that tax base, tax slab rate. This is uh, a fair value adjustment. Therefore, tax is amount has an unused tax forward from this and this combination is actually a rise. Tax unused costs that have been carried in accounting as a part under deferred tax assets. Of the target measurement period, and such adjustment results from new information from facts and circumstances that existed at the acquisition date. So I am all those things as effect to my business combination, but all of that judged by one thing, that is the acquisition date. Whether it was present at the acquisition date, it arrived while my acquisition business, the acquisition also, this is the case. The impact of such deferred tax will not be recognized as a part of business combination accounting. It is going to show an impact in your P&L for the current period or form a part of your business combination accounting. It will show up impact on my P&L like it does in normal situations. And next is the contingent liabilities. Contingent done in accordance with is dealt with actually IAS 37. For those people who are not from the functional background, I'll just what is the contingent past happening and by any occurrence or non-occurrence of this is what is contingent. As the name suggests, it is contingent. It might arise, might not arise also. Like, for example, I am involved in a case that is a case I am. This is what IFRS 3 was the only thing under the contingent liabilities. Now let's come down to the measure recognized the assets and liabilities. What are the assets and liabilities that needs to be recognized? Now I'm going to see how am I going to measure it. What is the value that I'm going to assign to those assets and liabilities, and how will I measure that? Which I'm going to measure my assets and liabilities. The first one is the market approach. Market approach actually estimates the fair value from the transaction price and other relevant information in recent market transactions involving liabilities. This is usually used for valuing my financial assets and liabilities like property, plants and equipments, any land or building that I have. Then it is I am going to value my asset as per the market approach, which is usually the scenario. Then income approach actually estimates value based on the asset's expected future cash inflow, discounted or capitalized at an appropriate rate. We approach when we capital type of assets, heavy machineries that are actually my capital. So I am going to value those income intangible assets, liabilities, and equity instruments are also as per this. Then is coming. Then we'll be coming down to cost approach. Cost approach actually estimates the fair value of the amount market participate more for an like for example, I have developed an internal software. It is an intangible or I have a kind of to estimate the fair value based on the replacement cost, as in what is the cost that what is the cost that any market person will pay me. That will be my cost approach. Now there is, of course, this is given for your analysis and everything, but it totally depends on your judgment. Complexity is involved here because the complexity of this whole valuation process actually depends on the asset and liability that is some valuations expertise. Management can of course engage expertise to value your uh, assets and liabilities, a specific professional, and these professionals, whether they are engaged or not, or the management tries to measure the values of your assets and liabilities by themselves, but really whatever as the value in the market or the income approach or through the cost approach, by anything they should be valued rightly and correctly, and they should not be materially misstated. Now we'll be coming down to the calculations part. Calculation part, as I said, there is after this remains goodwill. For my goodwill calculation only, I will be using my consideration, NCI, and my goodwill. So how do I calculate my goodwill? Goodwill is actually, I am going to take whatever the consideration is transferred from the acquired to the acquiree. I shall add the amount of the NCI recognized. As I told you, the amount of the NCI is totally depends on the acquirer. He can, or the whoever the acquirer is, use the value, rather they can present it as the ownership type NCI at fair value, or they can provide a proportionate interest in the acquiree's identifiable on the acquirer. In this, I am going to add the fair value of previous. If I am having a step acquisition, then I am going to add that whatever amount I have whatever the created in the out of all these assets and fair value liabilities amount. We have this will come down to the amount of goodwill. Now let's jump to. I hope these things are very clear. Yeah, let's start with this first example. So my question or my case scenario is that acquired company AC acquires 80% shareholding of target company, that is the TC, for $150 million. So this $150 million is my consideration. Now AC assesses the of assets and of TC is their net book value as presented in the statement of financial position of TC. So this means I do not need to revalue them as per the fair value standards. No measurement or recognition needs to be done. All they are presented at the fair value. So no assessment, no. Is that the software of TC is an like we CRM software in our last question of to be recognized on acquisition. It is certainly so this is actually the same example has been just provided under numbers. My CRM software, I have recognized it as a software and this is it is that was internally the state does not that set, but I mean the AC company to like as the fair value that AC company has actually measured on let's say whatever approach they have used, fair valued it at the showing in the property under set have I have equity and liability. Equity have share retained earnings. Liabilities I have certain under the TC's balance sheet. Now my transaction. This is my goodwill transaction. Provide 150 million and now NCI calendar. This is actually 20% because 80% was by AC. Main is NCI interest at they interest at proportion interest asset. Am I going to calculate it? I didn't set. So I will take this amount. In from that, I have added 25. Now this 25, I am giving you everyone just 30 seconds to identify what is this 25 amount. Where has this come from? Answers, of course, welcomed. Where have I got 25 from? Okay, so Shailesh has provided me the correct answer. It is actually the fair value of my CRM. It is specifically given here that this is my CRM software. Now, when I am going to recognize it in my at the time of acquisition, the amount that I had recognized and measured was 25. So I am going to add that while calculation of my net identifiable asset, because this is also an asset that is being transferred from AC. It is not being generated, it is being transferred by AC. I have just recognized it. It was there. And out of this, I am going to subtract my liabilities amount, this 97. So I've achieved an amount of 125 from net identifiable assets. This is my net identifiable assets, and 20% of this is being calculated as 25. So my goodwill calculation comes from 150 plus 25 minus 125, that comes down to 50. So all the amounts were in $1 million. So it is actually $50 million goodwill that I have acquired while in business combination. So any questions in this Excel example? So we shall move forward. Any questions with this Excel example specifically can please be shooted out here. I mean, it can be provided under the chat box, or you can also ask a question on this. Any amount that you're unclear on, any problem that you're facing while the calculation or something. So I suppose that there are no questions, and if in case there are certain, you can of course drop it in the chat box. Now this was a kind of acquisition, a partial acquisition, let's say. This was a partial acquisition. There is, of course, when we were using the goodwill calculation, it also had this previously owned equity interest fair value that is used for step acquisitions. So this is an example of step acquisition. This was for a partial acquisition, and this is for step acquisition. Of course, most of the time, this is only going to happen even if I'm having a true merger or a roll-up kind of acquisition. If I'm having a business combination, if I'm having in that also my mutual entities, my mergers, whatever, all those parties to that agreement, to that arrangement will of course be finalizing one acquirer, and all the others will be classified as acquirees or an acquiree. So in that case, they will be using the same kind of accounting method. So basically, there are only two, partial and step. They come down, they roll back to the partial or step in any form. Yeah. So here is the example for step acquisition. Under step acquisition, I am already in a transaction. I already have an investment into the acquiring company, though not that much that I can again control over that. So here the question say the case study is company AC. Again, AC and TC is basically the acquiring company and the target company. Company AC owns 35% interest in company TC. So 35%, of course, is quite a lot, is substantive, but not substantive enough to gain control over TC. Investment had an original cost of $50. Whenever the investment was made, the original cost was 50. So it accounted as an associate using the equity method. It was accounted as an associate, a joint venture, and the equity method as per IFRS 11. We will be looking at that. But before this, they were having this kind of an accounting setup between AC and TC. Now, on 31st of December 2019, carrying value of this 35% interest in TC was $230, and its fair value was actually $308. Fair value of company TC's identifiable net assets on that date, that is on 30th of December 2019, was $800. On 31st of December 2019, company AC acquires, or rather purchases, additional 40% interest in company TC, and the fair value of that amount was $352, and hence it has obtained control. Controlled obtaining means 35% I was already holding, 40% I have additionally purchased. So now that counts down to be 75% of the total. I have obtained a control over the acquiry, that is the TC, company TC. Company AC have actually obtained control over company TC. Company AC opted to measure NCI at fair value. Here we have seen, in this example, we had seen calculation of the NCI as a proportionate interest of under net identifiable assets. Here they have measured the NCI at the fair value. So whatever was the amount of the NCI is actually 25%. So whatever shares that rest 25% were holding, they have valued their fair under the fair valued measure, and they have determined the amount as $220. Here, I'll just zoom out. Yes, for you to see the calculation, any cash consideration that is provided for 40%, which was 352. For 40%, it was 352. NCI was valued at fair value was 220, and here we have got this previously held equity interest, which is $308. It was already given. They've actually fair valued that. So total of this comes to $880. Fair value of the identifiable asset is actually 800, which is already given. On that date, it was $800. So my goodwill out of this whole business combination, business acquisition of step acquisition, comes down to be $80. There is one more effect that will be on terms of accounting that will come, is the difference between this 230 and my 308. Because the carrying value under my books was 230, but the fair value was 308. So an accounting treatment will always also be done for this, and it is actually, if it is visible, it is the difference of 308 and 230 that will be recognized and gain on investment, and it is going to have an effect on my P&L. So $78 is my difference of carrying value and the fair value, and it is recognized as a gain on investment, profit on investment that I've had. So here was the step acquisition, and here is my partial acquisition. So any kind of acquisition that is within the scope of IFRS will come down to these two types of acquisition only. I will either have a step acquisition or a partial acquisition, And under partial acquisition, this is the way of calculating my goodwill. Under step of acquisition also it is the same. The only thing that is actually included here is my previously held equity interest at fair value, not the carrying value. Do not confuse between the carrying value and the fair value. All these things are measured at the fair value. The measurement approach can be cost, income, or market, but all my amounts are measured at fair value. So any doubt in these two types of acquisition, calculation of goodwill, or a calculation of NCI, that is my non-controlling interests? If anyone has a issue or a problem in the amount calculation, where does which amount comes from? Or any questions from the slide, the presentation? Anyone who has have a doubt? You can always come up with your doubts, or you can also type it. You can, of course, submit your doubts at support@BISP step acquisition sheet. Just a moment, sir. Step acquisition sheet. Yes. You're welcome. Sir, any problem that you had under the step acquisition sheet? Amount of 308. Why is it considered in calculating goodwill? This is actually my previously held equity interest. If I am having a business combination as per my IFRS, so I am going to take my any interest that I was holding in the entity previously also. So I am going to account for that also. The reason being, I will have to calculate the goodwill on the combination actually. If I do not use it in my calculation, it will not show the exact amount of goodwill, because my fair values of the identifiable net assets will take the calculations as per my current balance sheet of the acquiree, and my acquiree's balance sheet will actually include that investment in the under the equity. That is the reason I have taken this 308 of dollars amount in my calculation point of view. If I do not take it, it is not going to show the exact correct value of my goodwill. Because if I am purchasing the amount company altogether, so the goodwill is only calculated on the combination purchase consideration. If I do not take it into account, it will be twice consideration that I'm paying, 308 also, and the consideration if I'm paying of 352 also. So in order to value it fairly, I have taken this amount. Sorry, whether the same method is also prescribed by ICAI. Yes, the calculation way is same. It is just a difference in presentation. The calculation way is same by the ICAI also. Okay, any more questions?
Yes, Sanjana, I have one question.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes, of course.
So, what about the deferred? What about the deferred consideration? It is not covered under the IFRS 3.
Deferred consideration. Sorry.
So basically, whatever the consideration paid by the quarry to the quarry, so it is comes under the cash consideration, contingent consideration, and deferred consideration is also. I have saw in some questions. Okay, so just I am checking. It not cover under. It not come under this IFRS.
No, IFRS 3 only takes the